Hey bakers, Martin here in the studio making a deeply flavored, beautiful babka in bun form. I roll it up, it's got lots of layers, it's infused with the flavors of chocolate, cinnamon, orange, and even a little bit of coffee. These are our babka buns. Come along, let me show you how. Okay y'all, let's make this dough. So this is a babka dough, it's an enriched dough, and when I was writing this recipe, I tried a few different things. I tried it with brioche, I tried it with more like a milk dough, but then I ended up using basically the ratios that I use when I make challah. A couple notes about temperature for this. With enriched breads, it's important, as with all breads, but especially important with enriched breads, to guide fermentation. I've warmed my milk up because I want to support a nice rise. I've also put my eggs into some warm water to let them sort of warm up. I don't want to shock the yeasts with some cold eggs and milk. The recipe uses 2 whole eggs and then it uses 1 yolk, and you reserve the white that you're not using for use in egg washing things before they go into the oven. So I've got my flour in there. Using all-purpose today. All-purpose has plenty of strength for this dough. You're going to see that it will rise very high. Get your warm milk in, and I'm just going in whatever order I grab things. Instant yeast, a little bit of vegetable oil, yolks for moisture and also tenderness. Got some salt in there, very important. And last but not least, honey. I chose honey here because honey brings complexity that sugar doesn't necessarily. So I'm going to stir for a couple minutes, and then once I feel like it's relatively homogeneous, I'm going to bump it up to about speed 4 in this mixer, and I'm going to give it, say, 6 or 8 minutes, maybe 10 if it needs it. Okay, so I think we're there. But I always check the temperature. And why would I do that? Well, this is why. So if the dough comes off the mixer and say it's only 70 degrees, I know that it's going to take longer to rise than it will if it's at a warmer temperature. There's sort of like a Goldilocks zone for each type of dough that we make, right? In this case, I'd love to be between, say, 75 and 80 degrees. Next thing I'll do is put this into a container to rise, right? You could use a bowl, you could use a container with a lid. I really like a container with a lid because you do want to protect the dough against drying out. I'm going to put it in the container, and then we're going to give it a little bit of rest, and I'm going to come back and knead it in about 20 minutes. So we mix the dough and then we set it to rest for about 20 minutes. And I'm just going to knead it for a second. The purpose of this is just to strengthen the dough a little bit further. It's ready to go. So back into the container, set it in a nice comfortable spot to rise for an hour and a half to 2 hours. In my 2-quart, it's going to come all the way up to the lid. So comfortable spot, hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll see you soon. We'll be on our way to making some babka buns. Bada-boo, bada-boo, maybe. This dough has had an hour and a half to 2 hours. In our case, we had a really good temperature coming off the mix, and it rose really well. It's more than doubled. Pop it out. It's a beautiful dough. Very, very happy. And it's ready for the next phase. So, a little bit of flour on top, a little bit of flour on the bottom. And then, we're just gonna roll it. You can degas it by hand if you want. You can't hurt this dough, okay? So, if you see me being a little bit sort of heavy-handed with it, it's just me telling the dough what to do a little bit. So I'm going to roll it into a rectangle 10 by 16, similar to the way that you might pre-shape a bread dough or something like that. I'm almost like pre-shaping my babka dough. I want to get it into a very sort of even form so that when we go to the next step, which is to roll it into an even longer form, it will be really even, right? So I'm rolling to a size that's slightly larger than what I want because I know that it's going to retract some. I'm going to put it on a lightly dusted sheet tray, and then I'll put a cover on, and then just pop it in the fridge. We'll see you in 20 minutes. I'll go do something else. Cecile said that if I mess up, it doesn't really matter. It's all good, so we're good. I can just go. She's helping me out because, sometimes it's like, oh, am I getting this right? I don't know. This is kind of like the classic flavors for a babka, right? At least a chocolate babka. So into the filling for the chocolate babka, of course, I'm gonna have some chocolate. It's really good, really, really good quality chocolate. Brown sugar, I've got some salt in here. I think as I was thinking through the flavors that go with chocolate, I also thought, well, of course, I need to have some espresso powder in there. And if you don't want the espresso powder, just leave it out, no big deal. A full tablespoon of cinnamon, and I'm using really, really high quality cinnamon here, and then a little bit of cocoa powder. And I'm using this double dark. A little bit of color is going to be brought in addition to the depth of flavor, so really nice. And then there's really nothing else to it. You just stir to combine. This is one of those times when you want to use brown sugar that is not all clumpy, right? You want it to be soft. And I don't know about your house, but if my brown sugar is a little clumpy, I take a heel of bread and I put it inside the plastic bag, and the brown sugar is immediately not clumpy, or at least, in a couple hours. One of the many purposes or uses of bread, I guess. All right, good enough. Set that aside and get your dough out, and let's roll some dough. So the dough has had 20 minutes to chill. It could be a little bit longer, it could be a little bit shorter. What's happening is that it is relaxing a little bit. That's really the main thing that I want, is I want this to sort of just literally chill out a little bit. And so I'm gonna put it onto my surface. You don't need a ton of flour here. This dough is not gonna stick too much. It's pretty firm, right? I'm gonna roll it to, the instructions are 12 by 24, but if you wanna go for sort of maximum spiraling in the roll when you look at it from above or when you cut the cross section, you can roll to 12 by 30. Give yourself some space to enjoy baking if you have it, if you can find it. Sometimes of the year we need more space than others. And for me, baking is a place of space. It's a place where I can enjoy some peace and quiet, make something beautiful. One of my little indulgences is to bake, so much so that I turned it into what I do for work. So I'm at 12 by 24, that's what I want. Like I said, if you want to go for 30, if you want to be that maximal person who wants maximal spiraling and stuff like that, go on out. I actually like that too. But I'm going to leave it here for right now. So now it is time to do the filling. Remember that during the mix, we reserved an egg white, right? So we went in with 2 whole eggs and then 1 yolk. The other half of that third one is on the side. I'm going to use some now, and then I'm going to use some additionally before this goes into the oven. And what I'm doing is just applying a real thin sheen of the egg white, and it will just help my fillings to stay in place. Okay, so you just sprinkle a filling on, and you don't have to do this in a perfect way, because I'm going to go back with my hand and even it out. But I'll start by distributing it as I can. Pretty well. Okay, that's good. So with my hand, I'm just going to sort of move this to the edges. We want everybody that gets a babka bun to have the opportunity to tell the rest of the neighborhood how good you are, right? Now, the first fold with this is really the most important fold. I just want it to be quite small. I'm going to fold it about 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to press gently to it here. And then I'm going to go to the second one. And it's really not much of a tension here. I'm not really tensioning it. I'm almost just turning it onto itself. When you get down to the end, mine looks just a tiny bit like it's dried out a little bit because I've been talking too much. So you can go back, take a little bit of your egg wash, and you can just hit that edge if you want to. Again, it's one of those Martin things that you don't necessarily need to do, but it will help it to seal. Okay. And while that seal sets, I'm going to grab my pan and I'll give it a little spray. So I've got my pan, got my roll here. I'm going to check and see where I am in terms of my length. I'm 12, just basically right over 12. If you want, you can sort of lock out your tape measure, and then you can come in here and you can say, okay, half, and then halves again, and then each one of those will go into thirds. Basically 1-inch pieces, right? By the time I'm done, I should have 12. Okay, that guy's good. What I'm trying to do is get the rolls into the pan and have them be an even size so that when they bake up, they're all sort of uniform. That's kind of how I like them. Okay, so cutting, following my marks, 1-inch sections. There we go. And we're going to do 4 rows of 3 or 3 rows of 4. It's all the same. Depends on how you count it. I'm just making sure that each roll has its own sort of bit of real estate here, right? I'm just going to press them just a little bit to flatten. I'm not disturbing the spirals. I'm just pressing them slightly just to make them as even as possible. It's another step that no one will taste, but you might notice it. It might make them just a little bit more beautiful. Now, as I was cutting, I had a little bit of chocolate chips and a little bit of filling come out. Just take that and go over the top, just so we don't waste it, right? The work is basically done. Now's the time you can, make another pot of coffee, get out your favorite book, put your feet up, sit by the fire, whatever it is. These are gonna rise for about 2 hours. Basically, just let them rise until they're marshmallowy and fully risen together before baking. Make sure you cover them. Make sure you put them in a comfortable spot. If you're, snuggled up on the couch, maybe just put them on your lap, Snuggle yourself in, sip a cup of tea, and let those rolls rise for a couple hours, and then we're gonna bake. The time is here for us to finally bake them. We're getting to the end of the process. We can almost enjoy our labor, right? So let's look at the proof. When I look at these buns, I'm happy because the corners have mostly come together. There's a little bit of space in there, but for the most part, they have filled in the pan, which is what I want. And the reason for that is not just visuals, it also supports a bun which is like miraculously sort of air-filled and tender and light. So I'm brushing that egg white that we saved from the mix onto the buns, and what this is going to do is it's really going to add some visual appeal. It's going to add some shine. My oven is set to 400 degrees, and I've got a rack in the middle. There's one more step that we're going to do though, so bear with me. The last thing I'm going to do is, after I've brushed them, I'm just pressing them a little bit in the centers just to make sure that they're nice and even going in so that when they come out of the oven, they're relatively sort of homogeneous in form. So these look great, let's get them in. It's all over but the waiting. Bring your patience. 18 to 20 minutes, 400 degrees. We'll check them and see if they need to be rotated. And while those bake, I'm gonna make this orange syrup. While the buns bake, we're gonna make this glaze, which is basically just a simple syrup. It's an orange-infused simple syrup. You can make this in advance and just hold it at room temperature until they're out. That's okay too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some water and then add your sugar. And the other thing that's in here, and similar to the filling, it's a little bit of maybe a secret ingredient, I guess, I don't know, it's a little bit of salt. Salt brings a little bit of pop. And I think it's really important actually. Bring it up to temperature. It's gonna take a minute. You can start to combine if you want. When I set out to write these, I was thinking, well, of course chocolate's good. Of course, a little bit of coffee with chocolate is good. Add some cocoa powder in there. I wanted a brighter aromatic in the mix, and I feel like chocolate and orange is such a classic flavor. I tried this a bunch of different ways. I tried adding the zest early. I tried using peel. I tried a bunch of different ways to put orange in. And what I found gave me the most sort of delicate, elegant, beautiful, like subtle yet really memorable expression of orange was to zest it. And then after the liquid has reduced, I'll go ahead and just add it in and let it steep. So it's sort of a gentle infusion. Once that looks good, you can turn the heat off. And then you can put your zest straight in. And then we're gonna let it hang out for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna strain it. All right, set this aside. We'll be right back with some hot buns. I don't know what to say. I don't think I need to say anything. I think they kind of speak for themselves. They're beautifully brown. They have taken great color in the oven. That egg white that we brushed on is supporting that. They've also got this swirling effect, which is really what I wanted. It says babka to me in a way. As soon as they come out, you're gonna dump your orange simple syrup and it's just gonna go right over the top. The reason it's going on as soon as they come out is because I want that orange to sort of bloom again, and while they're still warm, they will do a better job of sort of absorbing this liquid. Sometimes I'll go back in with a pastry brush and just make sure that I have really good coverage, because when I'm pouring, maybe I missed a spot, and I really want the glaze to hit every bun because it's going to add this visual appeal to me, which is that shine. Do your best to wait at least a minute or two, let them come down in temperature and slightly firm up. They'll be easier to get out of the pan like that. So we'll give them just a minute and then we'll come back and I'll decide which one I'm going to eat first. It's one of those few recipes where I don't think I'd change anything. Almost everything I write, I'm like, I could probably tweak it this way or that. No, just eat them like this. Make them like this. Don't forget to click that like button and subscribe as well. We have videos coming all the time. Thanks for joining us. This is Martin from the studio saying thanks. It's like a spa treatment for your mouth, it's just like chocolate.